What's up, humans, and welcome to a new Psicoactivo. So this is sweater number 2 for Christmas. This is uglier than the last one, I know, but um, it's one of the few I have that I wanted to wear for you guys. Happy holidays, everybody, and happy Saturday. I hope that you guys are ready to talk a little bit of speculation, because yeah, we like to report on news about phenomenology in general and follow up stories that are real. This one has a lot of speculation in it because we're going to deal with a main theory that is going to be approached by multiple people that I've been following up on for a while now, at least the majority of this year. I am talking about the future human hypothesis. And I like to think that I have a decent intuition. Something tells me that a part, at least, of whatever is happening could be, I'm not saying it is, but could be related to some kind of time component. I don't know if it's time travel. I don't know if it's some non-local consciousness that is years ahead in time that is communicating with us. I don't know. But there's a couple of people who are talking about this in a professional fashion that I think their work should be addressed and should be highlighted. I'm talking, of course, about Dr. Michael Paul Masters from Montana University and Dr. Celestino Adolfo Piotti from Cordoba, Argentina. Coincidentally, and I don't think it's by chance, I think those two are perhaps the most qualified people to talk about potential hypothesis of what the UFO topic may be, because they're medical anthropologists. In Dr. Master's case, he's a morphological anthropologist. The career that he has right now used to be called medical anthropology, but now it's morphological anthropology. And Dr. Piotti founded the physical medical anthropology specialty in Cordoba, Argentina. So, and I found it really funny that both Dr. Masters has a book called the Extratempestrial Model, and Dr. Piotti has a book called the Guardian Theory. And they both have obviously different ways to approach the hypothesis, but it's funny that two people in their career are talking about essentially the same hypothesis. Granted, there are many different combinations and different approaches because Dr. Masters, the last time he spoke about the Nazca mummies, he claims they're fake, they're constructions. I honestly think that he hasn't looked at the entire data, but I understand why he decided to bow out from it because he has a lot of it on his plate. To those who don't know, he's been doing the rounds. There's a brilliant podcast he did with Julian Dorey this week, where he talked about not just his extratempestrial model, but also his personal experience with what he perceives NHI as NHI. And his story is very interesting. It did give me some vibes of Dr. Andrea Pujarich, who in his story, he talks about this group of NHI that he allegedly communicated with. He used to call them the Nine. And he used to make, I don't know if it's seances, it's the name. I'm not sure, where he communicated with them. And they allegedly told him information about humanity and about maybe the future. I don't know. But the story of Dr. Masters, he was allegedly given information that was like put in a safe inside of his mind. That's the way I can describe it. And he was going to know this information emerge when the time was right. I don't know what information that is. I don't know if it's related to some kind of event that is going to happen eventually, but that interaction is the first clue that you get that Dr. Masters could have been in contact with some kind of consciousness that knows about the future, you know? And that alludes to this future human hypothesis. But it is not as simplistic as people make it to be. Still a hypothesis that I guess won't be proven until something happens that makes it so.
But with regard to future humans, some are described as short grays, whether those are our descendants or avatars or sort of biological droids. It's hard to say 'cause some don't have genitalia, kind of need genitalia to make more babies, unless something's making you. And I kind of think that's the case with these ones. The sort
Something's making you?
Yeah, the dickless ones are probably made by a future human who no longer is making robots. Like it ain't Elon Musk making something that needs oiled and breaks down mechanically all the time. But it's probably the extension of our gene engineering into the future, where you just create something that can do all of this stuff for you. Send them in first to get somebody. If you're abducting an individual and they're a big scary person, send them in first, and they're more expendable because there's something you created for this purpose. And if you look at Whitley Strieber's account, he sort of describes these small beings as the muscle behind the operation.
In his book, The Extratempestrial Model, Dr. Masters talks about multiple different cases of contact stories, experiencer stories, abduction stories, where there are many signs and clues that these beings also have knowledge of the future or some kind of interaction with the future. And they know what's going to happen. They know your name. They're telepathic, all that stuff. One of the cases that is making me try to understand the overall story, because according to Dr. Masters and also Dr. Piotti, there is an element of time to the UFO topic that people seem to ignore most of the times because they think it's science fiction. It's been ingrained in our brains for decades that time travel is impossible and it is just science fiction. And right now, I am inclined to believe it's the case. But the UFO phenomenon does allude to some kind of time manipulation going on that we still don't understand and still cannot explain. And I think that Dr. Masters is in a unique position right now to be informing the people about what he knows and what he studies. His credentials, I already talked about this in one of my previous videos. His credentials are should be respected, and he should be listened to what he has to say about all of this. There's probably not another human right now that can explain this specific part of the puzzle as he does. And I can only wish that we could have an interaction between him and Dr. Piotti so they could just talk about this and understand each other, and we can be a fly on the wall or something and see what they come up with, because the conversations I've had with Dr. Piotti are some of the most interesting I've ever had in my life. And he has the same credentials as Dr. Masters. And I am hoping to get to talk to him at the start of the year. I want to ask him about everything. I've been talking to him in private. We've developed some kind of back and forth that is really cool. He's a really down-to-earth guy. That conversation he had with Julian Dorey, I recommend it to you, highly, highly recommend it to you, because it comes across that he's genuine and he cracks jokes. And despite how overwhelming the whole situation he's going through is, he seems like he's handling it relatively well. I mean, being this calm and cracking jokes in the face of something that is so paradigm shifting is commendable, I think. And I understand why he sometimes doesn't want to talk to everybody within the podcast circuit, because not everybody is prepared to talk about this stuff with him. There's a certain level of information you need to understand before you talk to someone like him about this in a deep and meaningful way, because he can talk to you about the book and what he's experienced and all that, but getting into the deep cuts is what makes a conversation with someone like him more interesting and more riveting too. So I hope I can get that out of him, because Julian did a brilliant job here. I think that these conversations are needed for the wider population, because someone with credentials like that talking about this topic in such with such candor, it's something that we all need at the moment, because there is a certain level of urgency going on right now. I don't know if you guys have noticed that needs to invite these types of conversations to every household, so they can realize that we are really undergoing a massive change into some type of new reality that we still don't know what it's going to be after this so-called singularity moment that is going to happen. I still have high hopes for what's going to happen. I have faith in people. I know that people inherently tend to speak sometimes in not such good terms about others. You can dislike someone. It's normal. We're humans. We can be angry at each other at certain points. But I still do believe that at the end of the day, when it comes to a life and death situation, or when we see someone in distress, our automatic reaction tends to be one from a sense of protection or love, you know. And I think the majority of people are like that. I really do. Despite the differences, despite sometimes hate that takes place and vitriol and all that, I think the majority do have that inclination to protecting others and to respond for others, you know? And I think that we need to have these conversations, because if all of these cases that have been mentioned in the past of contact and landings and all that stuff are indicative of something, it's that these beings are worried about our future. There's a pattern there, a trope that talks about these beings telling people that we need to not merge with technology in some sense, or move away from technology as much as we're going really fast. Just yesterday there was a confirmation that AGI may have been achieved already. That is extremely concerning. And I think that this merging with technology, we don't know what it will do to us. You know, right now we have humor, and we have love, and we have art, and we have beautiful sunsets, and we can appreciate them. And I do fear that if we merge somehow with technology, we could lose all those things that we love so much, that we enjoy so much. I was just having an interaction with one of my pets today, and those are moments that I wouldn't give up for anything in the world, you know? I love interacting with animals and with other people, and you know, it's fun. Even even those interactions that are kind of sour sometimes, you can learn to appreciate them and learn from them. So obviously I don't want that. And these encounters, and I'm going to show you one of the most famous ones. Listen to those kids, what they say. This is from the case of Rua, Zimbabwe in the 90s at Ariel School. Dr. John Mack, the late great Dr. John Mack, was interviewing these kids right after the encounter they had. They had this to say. Here it is.
You imagine is his reason for visiting Earth?
I think it's about something that's going to happen.
Something that's going to happen?
Yes.
Like what?
There's pollution or something.
Pollution?
Yes.
And how did he get that idea of pollution across to you?
The way he was staring.
The way he was staring?
Yes.
Somehow there was a message about pollution from the way he was staring?
Yes. I think they want people to know that we're actually making harm on this world, and we mustn't get too technologized.
How did that get communicated to you?
I don't know.
But somehow it did, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it came through my head.
Through your head. Did it, like, through words or?
My conscience, I think.
Your what?
My conscience.
It came to
told
you
me.
through your conscience told you?
Yeah.
I mean, while you were
While
in contact with the being, you mean, or
While the being was looking at me.
when? While it was looking at you.
It was like this lake of calmness in his eyes. I was compelled to look at him. It wasn't like I wanted to look away from him. Time became very still and very bizarre. In my mind, technology and not good feelings about technology either. It was like technology was a bad, dirty word. I think that he was saying to me, beware of the technology, don't go into it too heavy because it's not going to be good for you. It was only when I was looking at him and his face and his eyes that I got that. As soon as I looked away from him, that's when all of reality and everything that was happening came back too. And that's when I realized that something really strange is happening here.
It's fascinating. This was imagery coming through for them communicating, but it's done through right in your brain.
You were saying that you thought that they maybe were trying to tell us something, like about the future. Can you say more what your thought is, or what was it like?
It was like in the world, all the trees will just go down and there will be no air and people will be dying.
Yeah, so that implies that there is some type of knowledge these beings have about us. And simplistically, yeah, you would say those could be future humans. I agree. I don't think it's that simple, but there is an element to that. And a lot of the work Dr. Masters has done is related to this, to pointing out the little details and the data points that talk about some kind of time element to the whole story. He also has this book called The Identified Flying Objects that also talks about this, that he believes these could be time machines. We don't know yet, but it's certainly an interesting one. Some of the aspects that could prevent us from understanding or getting to talk about this have to do with this merging with technology and also our belief system. Because right now, there's a lot of wars going on in the world that have to do with a religious difference of opinion, you know? And Dr. Masters talks about this on the Julian Dorey podcast. I want to show you a little clip about this so you can see what I mean. Here it is.
Well, I think we are coming to a head, and this has come up a couple of times. I was in a meeting with one of the congressmen involved in this UAP task force, and his chief of staff and some other colleagues of mine, and just a small little meeting to talk about some of these things. One thing that came up, I think that hearing's today, by the way. I think it's happening like right now. Yeah. Sorry, am I not allowed to talk about when things are happening?
No, you can.
Okay, cool.
I'm gonna put this out in like a month.
Okay. Anyway, so we're talking about like how they wanted to know what we thought this hearing should be like, or how it should go, or what types of things should be addressed. And the question of religion came up because it's obviously a dominant thing in our society. And I was saying, and my colleagues as well who study this more than I do, my last book was about this question, but they're like theologists and psychologists who study belief systems. But it seems like to start, there's different baselines we have to build before we can get to this overarching question of religion and how it may relate to the UFO phenomenon throughout antiquity. But it seems like we need to start with, is this real? And I think we've been working at that since 2017, New York Times article, yada, yada. And then the DOD acknowledging the reality of these craft, Fravor and Graves talking about what they saw in Dietrich too. And then once we've established that this is real, then we can start getting into theory a little bit, which is why I've been coming into the conversation more recently, because that's kind of the only thing I can contribute is this theoretical approach, bringing in knowledge from these different academic fields to try to build a case for this extratempestrial model, but also others? You know, how do they fit with each other? And then we can establish a framework in theory, and then we can get into implications. What are the implications of this if it's real, and if they are coming from outer space, or they're coming from our future, or they're coming through dimensions, or they're living underground, cryptoterrestrials? Then we can start to look at implications of this. We can start to potentially understand their intent through looking at patterns. And then that's where this issue of religion comes in. Maybe a lot of these things that we do believe in a literal biblical sense did happen, but they didn't fit within the box of people at that time. So they created these ideas around them and tried to explain them the best way they could. And we're still trying to do that today. We're still trying to fit the reality of this phenomenon into the framework of religious belief systems. It doesn't neatly fit, so a lot of people say, that. I don't want to have anything to do with it. Other people are like, well, this must be demons. It must be demonic, like my dad. He's like, well, this is a thing, but he probably only believes it because he saw it. This is a thing, but it's this. It's this thing that I already understand, so I can put it in this smaller box within the bigger box. So he does bring the box in, but I think it's going to come to the point where the two boxes are one. Where this UFO phenomenon, kind of your original question, I guess, was how did they fit together for me? I think we're all going to be at that point where the UFO phenomenon, and historically and prehistorically, and then our belief systems are going to merge into one thing. And that was kind of what I was trying to do with this last book, is show how those are likely to come together.
So that's a component that also needs to be addressed. But we got to go step by step, right? And right now, I think that a lot of people are now disenchanted by the whole religious system, and we need to learn how to communicate with the more religious ones so we can get to reach like a level where we can see eye to eye. But I think that it needs to come from a place of empathy and understanding instead of judging and thinking that scientism is better than religion. I think both have their good and bad sides to them. So balance is what we need, I think. But yeah, I hope that we can get to a place where we can talk about these theories more openly and to a wider number of people in the world. And I hope that people like Dr. Masters and Dr. Piotti can be regarded as I regard them, very important human beings in time's history. That's what I think. And I think that we need to listen to them, to what they have to say. They are honest people too. So that's my take on what the extratempestrial model or future human hypothesis might be, and the avenues that it can take us towards. I do have some kind of gut feeling that this might be related to the whole story that we still can't understand or wrap our heads around. But we'll see. Maybe it's not. Okay, so that's it for me today. If you want to support the channel, I'm going to ask you please to like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the bell icon. There are a bunch of links in the description so you can help in other ways. Thank you for your help. And I'll see you guys on Monday. There was an interview I was supposed to do on Friday that I wasn't able to do, but it moved to Monday, so expect that. It's Nazca Mommy related. So stay tuned. Bye.